This is Real Estate Talk Boston, joined right now by real live home flipper, Tom Cafarella. Tom, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, you're a real estate investor.
Yes.
How does somebody get into that? Is that something you got into right out of school?
So there's my story, and then there's obviously like how I would recommend doing it. So I started out by buying into a franchise. So a franchise system, it's one called Homevestors. And so like a Subway or a McDonald's, they teach people how to fix and flip houses. And so I spent the greater part of a couple of years underneath them, kind of learning what they do. And then I ended up going off and doing it on my own. So they provided me with the tools, the resources, the support in order to get there. And then I kind of took it off on my own once I kind of figured out how to do things.
Now, did you get into it at an early age? Because there's no salary in a job like this, right? I feel like there's a lot of people that have full-time jobs. They sit at a desk 9 to 5, and then light goes off. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
and then they jump into it.
So that was me. So I was a full-time accountant, sitting behind a desk all day, and I absolutely hated it. So I felt like I was chained to a desk. I used to tell people that I would rather be in jail, because at least if you're in jail, you can kind of maybe read a book that you want to read. But working as an accountant, I had to sit behind my desk just doing whatever somebody else wanted me to do. So I knew I wanted to get out, and I ended up spending so much time reading about real estate investing and researching it that I ended up getting fired from my full-time job. So probably not the best way to go about doing it, but it put my heels to the fire, and it taught me, hey, you've got to make it happen really fast. Because prior to that, I spent the latter part of probably 1 to 2 years trying to figure out how to make this happen. And I didn't take that first step.
There's a lot of resources out there on the internet. A lot of people now with Facebook advertising about becoming a flipper, investing in real estate. It can almost be overwhelming. There's so many different outlets. You focus on single family flipping.
Yes.
Which is different from, there's a bunch of different varieties of how you can get into real estate investing.
For sure. And the stuff on the internet, like the beauty of the internet is that you can get a lot of information, you can get it for free. The negative of the internet is that anyone can publish. So it doesn't matter if you know what you're talking about. So there's all sorts of different, there's good information, there's bad information, and then, there's information that, confuses you because there's so much out there. So it is important that you define kind of what you want to do out of the gate. And to me, really find a mentor that can help walk you through every step of the way.
Your niche is single family investing. It's one of the avenues that you go down. I believe you have a partner.
Yep, I have 2 partners actually. So basically what I do in my business is I find the properties that we're going to fix and flip. And the other 2 partners manage the actual construction themselves. So it's funny because if you watch like an HGTV, you never actually see how that house was purchased, which is one of the most important parts of the actual deal. All you see is the renovation, which is kind of the, dramatic part of it and kind of cool part to see at the end. But the upfront work to go into getting a great deal takes a lot of time, effort, and energy.
Let's talk about the local market here for a second.
Yep.
I hear a lot of people in the real estate world say that Boston is overpriced. It's really hard to find a deal for investing right now. Do you find that to be the case?
It is if you don't have the proper mechanism set up. So first of all, for the overall economy, Boston's overpriced, right? So that's just a fact. What they're talking about, the people who are saying to you that they can't find a deal, they're looking for properties where everybody else is looking. They're looking on the MLS for stuff that's listed. When you look at properties that are listed, every single person in that market has access to that property. So my entire job revolves around getting in front of a seller before that property gets listed for sale and making them a cash offer.
Okay, makes sense. So it's all about having, like you said, the systems in place and having a process.
It's a marketing funnel. So just like a real estate agent would prospect to get a listing, I'm prospecting to get a great deal. So before that person decides to list with an agent, I'm going to come out there, I'm going to make them an offer, and because of that, I'm able to get a good deal on the house. Not always, but sometimes.
Your business also has a teaching side of it, I understand. So you actually show people how to do what you do in a market like this. It can be tough. You're going to give them the inside scoop, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, this business is not complicated. There's only a few things that you have to really do right, and that's what we teach, right? The most important thing is getting that great deal. Because if you get a great deal and you get it for a good price, all of the rest of the stuff falls into place. Getting the financing, getting the contractors, even if you go over budget but you got a great deal on the front end, you can make up for it on the back end because of the fact that you got a good deal. If you overpay for the property on day one, but then you go over budget, or even if you keep it at budget, you won't make money. So the whole process that I teach is how do you get that great deal before anybody else gets it?
Driving down the street, I feel like it's becoming more and more common to see signs on telephone poles saying, "We buy ugly houses."
Yep.
Is that a strategy that you guys use?
That's not a strategy that we use. I mean, we have billboards up, but that's not the number one strategy that we use. That's a fairly high cost per lead. So we measure everything like how much does it cost for us to get face-to-face with the seller. And signs and outdoor stuff doesn't work that well in today's market because, well, let me ask you this. The last time you were stopped at a red light, where were your eyes?
My wife will get mad at me for this, but on my phone.
On your phone.
Yeah.
Everybody's eyes are on their phone, right?
Yeah.
So that's where people are. So your ads need to be where people are looking, which is Facebook, right? So that's where we generate a ton of our traffic, and not just Facebook, but that's one mechanism that we use. And why we don't really do, even though, again, we have like 15 billboards up as of today, it's not our number one lead source. It's actually our worst lead source. But we teach people how to do that. But I think your question was like, you see them up all the time. So even within people like me, there's competition. But we want to get as little competition as possible. So if we're looking at a property that's listed for sale, maybe 1,000 people know about that property, right? People are looking, say, we're in Quincy right now. There might be 1,000 people that are looking at that property for sale by a real estate agent in Quincy. If it's not listed, instead of 1,000, it might be 10 people that know about it. So you're limiting your competition and therefore getting a better deal on the property.
I'm sure you come across this question a lot. People say, okay, I want to get into real estate investing. How much money do I need to jump into the game? Can you do it with little to no down?
You can do it with no money down, but it's harder, right? So in terms of like getting a great deal, you need to get face-to-face with sellers. Now, if you have a lot of money and you put up a billboard, you're going to get leads. You're going to get face-to-face seller appointments from people just calling on the billboard, right? So that's the one extreme where you have a lot of cash available to advertise. On the other side, if you want to do it completely free, all that you need to do is pick up a phone, build a database in your market, and call on those people. Hey, Mr. Homeowner on Main Street in Quincy, are you thinking about selling your property? And hitting them over and over and over again. That's completely free, but it takes a lot more time. So if you have a lot of money, it makes things easier and faster. But I started with no money, so you don't need to have any money to start.
You've been doing this for a decent period of time.
10 years now, yeah.
So 10 years in the business, talking to the person that's just getting in, what's that one piece of advice that you would give them today?
The biggest piece is that you have to understand that you can't buy properties that everybody else knows about. So if 3 or 4 or 5 people know about the property, it's not going to be a good deal. So you need to be out prospecting and finding sellers that want to sell their property before everybody else knows about it.
That's a value missile right there. So you're going after people before they're even actually in the market to sell.
Yeah, I mean, we're calling them saying, hey, are you thinking about selling your property at any point in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? We have people that we call or that we mail or that we put up an ad on Facebook or Google, and then they tell us, we're not going to be ready for 3 years. Great. I'm going to buy your property in 3 years then. And in some cases, so that either leads to us following up with them in 3 years. In some cases, we'll actually put them under contract. So I had a person who was a Marblehead firefighter who wanted to retire. He was going to retire from being a firefighter in 18 months. We put his property under contract and bought it in 18 months from then. So that's one of the benefits. Like a lot of people in the general audience think, well, there's a lot of negatives to selling to an investor, like they're going to get a lower offer, et cetera, et cetera. But that's one of the benefits. This particular person was able to literally define the day that they were going to be able to move to South Carolina. And he really valued that because he wanted to retire and the next day he wanted to be out of here.
DC, that's a prospecting value missile market. Tom, before we break here, what's that one piece of technology? Today's all about apps and technology, right?
Yeah.
What's that one piece of technology that you use daily in your business that you can't live without? And when I say technology, not the phone, right? We all have them. What's that one app that
Well, it
drives the business.
It is the phone, but it's an app for the phone called Mojo Dialer. And what Mojo Dialer does is it allows you to call up to 3 people at one time, so that when you're cold calling, you always get a live person on the line. So basically what it does is it allows you to basically prospect to a bunch of people, and when somebody picks up the phone, you get the live transfer. So you're always talking to somebody. So instead of cold calling and making, 100 calls in a day, you can make 500 in a day. And it's called Mojo Dialer.
Mojo Dialer, it's on the App Store, mojodialer.com. It's a brilliant thing. What happens to the person that picks up the phone 2 seconds later?
So once in a while, there'll be a disconnect. It actually doesn't happen that often, but once in a while, like the first person will pick up and then the second person will pick up. But what the dialer does, it'll automatically call that person back next after you hang up with the first person.
Very cool.
So it's not perfect science, but it's much more effective than doing it the old-fashioned way.
Awesome. Now, if somebody wants to connect with you directly, possibly take your classes, where's the best place to connect with you?
The best place would be to go to my website, which is www.tomcafarella.com. Just my first name, my last name.
Awesome, Tom. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
And remember, there's more real estate tips just like this one right here on Boston.com.